In every miniature painter's life, we come across a problem. Something that we think is simple in theory, but is deceptively deceptive. How to paint black armor that doesn't suck. When it comes to painting black, the most common approach is to paint it a flat black and then just edge highlight. And there's nothing wrong with that. It defines the outlines and gives us detail separation. But it also takes for fucking ever. And that's not even a big deal if it wasn't so mind-numbingly boring and a few slip-ups and it looks a bit rough. So, what's the alternative?
Volumetric highlighting. The answer is volumetric highlighting, just like every other video we do around here, except this time we're gonna do something we don't usually do. It's subtlety. At least I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not too sure. This is my first time. From a black primer, I've started out with a mixture of the darkness and black. And with the darkness, we're going to start to plot out some very wide highlights. And you do want these to be a little bit wider than usual because we want the light to seem dispersed. And to help sell that effect, we're going to take a little bit of matte black and start creating a gradient between the darkness and black. We're just going to fade it down. And here's a little tip to remember, even if you start with a black primer, it's still a great idea to base coat the model with the same black that you're going to be using. That way, when you have to do something like this and create a gradient down into that same black, it's going to have the same finish. Now that our little gradient's all set up, we're going to take deep ocean blue, which is just one step above the darkness. We're trying to keep this one smooth and subtle, so we don't want a big jump in contrast. We also don't want to fill out the exact same spots that we set up with the darkness. This time around, I am coming a little bit down the shin, but I'm aiming for more the top of the edges that would be catching light. Because in order for this to read as black, we need a lot of black present. And because the deep ocean blue and the darkness are so close together, they're a lot easier to blend. Now it's time for Grey Castle. Even though we're looking for a cold blue-black kind of feel, adding something that's a little bit warmer into the highlights is going to give it a sense of warmth and light. But because now we're mixing colors, we do have to be a little bit more mindful. I'm only adding the slightest, tiniest bit of Grey Castle into the deep ocean blue to get our next color up. And I can't stress this enough, but we are not going to pure Grey Castle on this model. Because if we start to build the contrast up a little bit too high, we're going to come out with a more metallic metal feeling instead of a dispersed flat black. We're only trying to make the shape a little bit more readable by adding some depth perception in there. Which is why we're only highlighting edges and the tops of upward facing shapes. And now we're going to take that same idea and start applying it to the rest of the miniature. The big thing to remember here is to keep it dark. The brighter that you go with your highlights, the brighter the overall feel is going to be. Don't feel like you have to keep pushing the highlights because that's what you're used to. Unless you really just want to. I don't know, I'm not your mother. Her mustache is much more impressive than mine. It also helps to stop and look at it every once in a while. The model, not your mother's mustache.
Alright, so you may have clicked on this video for a different reason, and now that the sensible portion of this video is finished, let's do some warp glow.
This one's not as hard as you might think it is. But you do have to break the effect down into two different sections. The first one is the actual glow itself. I'm going to use Terrestrial Titan and start mapping out everywhere that I want the light to affect. So that's mostly inside the little head cave, and then yes, it is going to bounce out and hit the inside the shoulder pads as well. And now we know where we're painting the lights in, we're going to start increasing the brightness. For this one, it means we're going to bring in some Basilisk Red. This deep cold red is going to become somewhat of a bridge between our Terrestrial Titan, which is a dark purple, and where we're eventually going to go. So we're going to hit all of those same areas that the purple did, leaving just a little bit showing. And if you're wondering why the shoulder pads aren't actually painted in at the moment, it's because I wanted to leave myself some space to do this glow. It was just easier to leave that little bit of extra room instead of having to go back and repaint layers and glazes in. After the first coat, I did come back in with a second layer of Basilisk Red just to kind of boost up that color depth a little more. Again, this is just helping us out with the transition between the darker reds and purples into where we're going to end up. From here, I'm going to keep up on that layer train and move into Flag Red. This is one of the new reds from the Army Painter's historical range. And while it might be in a set designed for rivet counters, it's still just a paint and a color and you can use it anywhere. Even though my models typically look like the inside of a melted bag of Skittles, I've still found a lot of these colors pretty useful for basing. When you're painting and highlighting red, you have two options. You can either highlight into an orange direction, or you can do what I do and go with pink. And of course, there's no better pink than Wicked Pink. Except maybe Hot Pink. And we're going to follow that same highlighting trend of only highlighting closer to where the light's supposed to be coming from. Speaking of, it's about time Jeff turned up. If you don't remember who Jeff is, here's a reminder. Pachow! This mix is a 3-to-1 matte white paint and war paint stabilizer just to get it to that super flowy state. I want it to look like the light is coming from the recesses in this suit, so we're going to have to paint the recesses somehow. Oh look, my other favorite pink. Now, Power Node Glow is pretty damn strong, so this has also been thinned down with the war paint stabilizer to about 50-50. It's also why I didn't really care about blending at all, because once you get a tint of this on, it's going to blend it for you. It's also going to make everything pop.
Alright, we know that ads inside a video suck, so you have 30 seconds to find our Farius.
Have you found him yet? 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 I'm not going to do this through the entire break, but it'd be hilarious. Have you found him yet? 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 Nope, that's not it. Try again, one more try. You've only got 10 seconds left. Have you found him yet? 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 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and there he is. Horus told me to tell you that if you want any of the paints in today's video, go to the Army Painter or in-games and use code Heresy5. But right now, we need to look at doing part 2. The glow inside of the helmet is one thing, but it actually needs something to bounce off, and luckily, there's something in there. But before we paint any of the glow, we need a face. I'm going to take my same old skin tone recipe that you can find here, pachow. And now that I've double pachowed, I probably owe Uncle Adam a drink. Or at least a crisp high five. Terrestrial Titan, Topaz skin, and Opal skin is going to get us out of trouble. And all I'm going to do is paint each layer, and in between each layer is a 50 fix between those two paints. But the other thing to remember here is that it's basically going to have 3 light sources affecting this face. We're going to have our 2 pink light sources on either side, so that's 1 and 2. And then we're going to have a neutral light from the front. So this time around for the face, I'm going to be pushing all of the highlights towards the center of the face. If you draw a line directly above and below the nose, that's exactly where that line's going to be. Which is exactly where all of our highest highlights are going to end up. The only exception to this is probably the cheekbones. While I'm not going to be highlighting them and taking it as far as that center line, I do need to highlight them to actually show that they're present. Even though this is a 3D sculpt and you will see it in the real world light, we still have to make it look like it's affected by the scale light. You don't want to highlight to the same level of intensity as the focus line, but if you don't do something, you will lose details faster than green grass through a goose. And yes, if we have a focus line right down the middle, it means the sides are going to be a little bit darker, and these are going to become our occlusion shadows. And that big fancy term is just the word for that little gap of darkness in between 2 different light sources. And now, because we already have that darkness, we're not going to start from Terrestrial Titan like we did with the OSL glow from the actual Terminator body itself. We're going to start right in from that Basilisk Red. Except now, because we want a little bit of that skin tone to show through, we're just going to start layering in some washes of it. So this is just really, really heavily thinned down Basilisk Red. To start with, we really just want to gradually fade it in and more tint the surface than anything. But as we start moving up into our flag red and getting a little bit closer to where the lights are coming from, we're going to start to make it more intense. And yes, you will eventually build up to an opaque layer, and that is absolutely fine. But as you're working with these paints, try and keep it as thin as you can. The intensity and opaqueness will come just from layer upon layer upon layer. And now that we've cycled through all of those same paints right up into our Wicked Pink, we can start actually focusing in on the highlights and adding our saturation, going back to Power Node Glow. Now, I get that this one isn't as bright and poppy as just about everything else we do on the channel, but sometimes I need to be helpful. You may have even seen this same approach somewhere else before, but sometimes a different explanation is all it needs to make sense. As always, a massive thank you to In-Games, the Army Painter, and of course the best Patreon members in the world. Hit subscribe, big love you filthy heretics.